did not begin or end in the 60s and early 70s. We are now at another phase of the movement. America is getting ready to go through another 60s type period. That leads to the other statement. Each generation must find their historical mission and either fulfill it or betray it. Frantz Fanon said that. Each generation must find their historical mission and either fulfill it or betray it. As America gets ready to go through this change that it's going through, you are now the high school age. It is now your generation. It is now your turn to take over. Back in the 1960s, and they don't want you to. They want you in the mall. They want you high because they know you can't fight them high. Because if you go back to the 1960s, one of the ways they destroyed the movement was through drugs. And they want you high right now. Because as long as you high, you can't do what's necessary. They want you playing with your video games. I don't want to start no trouble. But they want you distracted so you can't play your historical role. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at a populist type movement where all colors of people are being affected. And we're dealing with the corrupt rich. The corrupt rich. Listen, we're dealing with the corrupt rich whose mantra is more is not enough. And so when they see a widening of the gap between the rich and poor, they're saying more is not enough. And what the politicians are doing is they're trying to solve this financial crisis on the backs of the poor and the middle class. They're not cutting Wall Street. They're not cutting the corporations. Cut them. Send them to jail. Why are you putting this on the people? Listen. These budget cuts that are taking place, you got to tie it into the bigger picture. There's money. The money is there. The money is there for health care. The money is there for education. It's being redirected towards war. And you got to go and you have to understand that when you say no budget cuts, what you're saying is no military economy. Dr. King had it right. Dr. King had it right. Dr. King told Lyndon Johnson, you can't fight against poverty and fight in Vietnam too. Well, you can't have money for education and health care and fight in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Pakistan. That does not work. And so once you understand, listen, they're going to test you. They're going to test this generation. They're going to test you to see how much you're willing to sacrifice. Because the success of your movement is going to be based on your willingness to sacrifice. Will you put it on the line? It's not just you. It's these professors as well. It's the presidents and the regents. Will you put it on the line or will you sell your soul? And when they tell you, when your generation who've been brainwashed into inactivity, because that's what you're dealing with, there are those who would rather party than to be involved in a movement. You got to go get them. Don't be hard on them. Don't be hard on them. Be patient with them. But you got to open up their minds. Let them know there's more important things than partying and getting high. We have a serious mission ahead of us. And when they say when they tell you that the odds are against us, how can we go against these corporations? How can we go against the military-industrial complex? You tell them, si se puede, that we can do it. You tell them that yes, it's going to be a struggle. All movements are a struggle. It is going to be a struggle. We will have to sacrifice. But I'll tell you this, as America goes through its own perestroika, right? Its major changes, its major restructuring, the corporations will try to hold on to power as long as they can, and they will be as brutal as they have to be. But when you go up to them, Dr. King was right. Dr. King said, no, don't tear it up. Don't burn it up. You ain't got to pick up no gun, Dr. King said disobey them. Dr. King said massive civil disobedience. And once you understand, once you let them know who has the real power, you students in the state university, in this UC system, you let them know that it's you have the real power. But you have to understand that this struggle, this movement is going to have to go to a higher level, a higher stage of struggle, and you may have to engage in old-fashioned civil disobedience in order to stop the machinery. Because anytime you send trillions and trillions of dollars to the people who caused the problem, anytime you give trillions and trillions of dollars to the people who caused this whole financial depression that we are in, instead of sending them to jail, while the people who had nothing to do with the problem are losing their jobs and their homes and their health care and paying more for education, the machinery must be stopped. And therefore, listen. And just like they taught us in my close here, just like they taught us in history class, it's amazing that they're talking about getting rid of history. Malcolm had it right. Malcolm said of all of our studies, history is best qualified to reward all research. And your generation, you've got to be reconnected to the history. Because anytime that you allow this financial crisis to be solved on the backs of the poor and the working class, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, we have to stop it. And like it says in our Bill of Rights or Constitution, one of them bad boys, when any other form of government become destructive of these rights, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and institute a new government. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.